Okay. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
I'm pleased there are no fires anywhere.
Absolutely. So far.
So welcome. So thank you, David. Yeah, it's all right. We can sort the rest later. So, what John Lennon then said, we've got this gift of love, but love is like a precious plant. You can't just accept it and leave it in the cupboard or just think it's going to get on by itself. You've got to keep watering it. You've got to really look after it and nurture it. Doesn't that sum it all up? John Lennon really did have this thing on that. He didn't just write about it, he really lived it, which really impressed me. Now, I'm going to come back to that slide later on, but I want to just do something in comparison. This, I want to talk to you about, I'll read this out and then I want to talk to you about this guy. How many people know Jiddu Krishnamurti? Now, I'll talk to you about him in a second. He was an Indian sage. He died in the late 80s. I'll talk about it in a second. Life cannot be without relationship, but we have made it so agonizing and hideous by basing it on personal and possessive love. Can one love and yet not possess? You will find the true answer not in escape ideals or beliefs, but through the understanding of the cause of dependence and possessiveness. Actually, I'll come back to this slide in a minute. I want to tell you a bit about Jiddu Krishnamurti, because this is a really important piece. And I'm going to go over this and use different words, because we haven't used really those words in this course so far. Jiddu Krishnamurti was discovered as a child by C.W. Ledbetter. I don't know if you know that name. He was the head of the Theosophical Society. And they had a branch in India and elsewhere, really based in England, I think. And he saw this boy, as a young boy, he and his brother, and he knew that Krishnamurti had some spiritual, special stuff about him. And so what he did is he took these two children to England and raised them, but basically. And so they were embedded in the culture of the Theosophical Society. And the intention of C.W. Ledbetter and others in the Theosophical Society, Annie Besant and others, was that he would become the leader of this organisation. But what happened was that Jiddu Krishnamurti did not do that, and he really rebelled against the whole notion of organisation. So what he realised, and he talked a lot about this in his lectures and so on in subsequent years, was that people become completely captured by their background, and particularly by religious background, which was what he rebelled against. I was lucky to see Krishnamurti. I went to a few of his talks. He used to have a school in Ojai, California, just inland from Ventura, and I was over there in my early 30s, and I would take my camper van up to Ojai. Ojai is spelled O-J-A-I, so it's inland from Ventura, which is on the coast. And he would sit under an oak tree. He had a whole field of oaks in the school, and the one he sat under was the biggest tree in the whole. So he had been sitting under that giving lectures for a long time, and had become the biggest tree in the whole oak grove. And Jiddu Krishnamurti was hard to understand, and he really went out of his way to really get people to see that we as individuals are not soul. He really wanted to help us understand it. We're just a personality with an ego, and that's separate. And the ego is what drives most people's lives, not love or what's best for them. And so what he would do is he would lecture in the third person. He would say, this person that's speaking to you has experienced such and such, and such and such. He would speak in the third person. He really tried to get people to see that they really were an ego, and they were usually removed from the love, which is more connected to their source, sense of self. So I want to expand on this because this is where we get trapped. And then I'm going to come back to the love thing. So here's what happens in our relationships. And very, very few people can escape this. First of all, first thing that happens under personal love is what you do for me is what matters. Now that's not the way we start. What we do is we start in a relationship by doing the opposite. What I do, what happens for you most matters to me. But actually then what happens is we get to a point where what happens to me most matters to me. So what you do for me is what matters. There are several bits to this. Secondly, what I feel when with you is what matters, not what you feel when with me. Now this disconnects people because we're different. So when we're in an interaction, we don't say, oh, okay, what are you feeling? I want to know where you're at. No, what we do is we actually prioritize what we feel, and we usually do a bit of dumping what we feel and stuff like that. Because we've lost the ability to really connect with another person. And part of the problem is that we've disconnected to ourselves. So when we get wobbly emotionally, we lose our love and we lose our connection. So then what happens is what feels to me matters, and what I'm saying to you is a reflection of what's going on for me. We usually don't know what the feeling is. We just project. We just vomit over another person. So what we do is we lose completely the ability to say, okay, what's going on? Help me. I'm going to slow down. I really want to know what's going on in you. We completely lose track of that. Partly because we're so into fight, flight for ourselves that we just lose the ability to do that. Thirdly, I matter. So what will I get from this? That's what we do with the relationship. That's what we do with most interactions. Our ego basically is saying, I matter, what am I going to get from this? It's really hard for us to say, okay, let me put me aside. What's going on for you? Help me understand where you're at. I want to know what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and so on. What we do is we fight what you're thinking and feeling. We feel like we're in a battle. That's most people, not just people in this room. Most people are in a battle. So what I get from this is behind it. We don't tend to think that way, but that's what's behind it. So now possessive love I call control. Possessive love is where I love you because I want something out of the love I have for you. But what that finishes up meaning is that people become controlling. So the first part of that is I want you to do what I want, not what you want. I fear being controlled. Now you think of what happens in most arguments. This is exactly what happens in most arguments. It's really hard for us to avoid it. So I want you to do what I want, not what you want. Now you think that sentence, that is the source of most people's arguments. Now they don't think of it that way because they don't see it as happening that way. So they don't take the time to see that that's what's actually going on. And the real problem in relationship is that we fear being controlled by our partner's preferences, our partner's ideas, our partner's view of something, so we keep arguing the point. So really what we're doing is we're trying to escape being possessed by a person who is going to be dominating us. Number two, I will fight for what works for me, not for what works for you. Now the irony is, when we're in the symbiosis stage, the early stage, the romantic stage of a relationship, we do the reverse, of course. We're going to totally fight for our partner. But when the ego kicks in, we don't believe, we can't see how we can fight for two people. So we have to fight for us. And fairness also means I mustn't miss out. That's basically most people's view of fairness is my view and my preferences get prioritized. Now that may sound a little cynical to you, but you can sort of see that that's the way most relationships work. Now I want you to understand though that that is the normal human condition, and it comes from the fact that we grow up in a culture where we fight for survival. We fight for survival from the bullies at school, we fight for survival with our siblings, it's everywhere. So we're used to fighting, we're actually used to having to support ourselves. But there is another way. Here are some features of what people are like when they're genuinely loving. Now this is very, very few people. People might be in this place momentarily, but they're not in this place for very long. But with practice, you can be there longer. The first thing is I manage to see the best in you and love you even when you lose the plot. Now if you're really loving with somebody, what you do is, oh, you're having a bad day. Oh, right, you're really worked up. Oh my goodness, something's going on there for you that you're really knocked around. And to be able to stay and say, okay, you're having a struggle, and not get caught in the struggle, right? That's what we tend to do, because in fact we take it on. It's a person where if a person's all over the place, that they're throwing implied criticism our way, or throwing implied shame that I haven't been better or something. So what happens to people who are really loving is they manage to see the best in their partners even when they're losing the plot. And especially when they're losing the plot. Because they learn not to take it personally. But you've got to know how not to take it personally. Secondly, I never forget that you're human and accept the way you function. Most of us are not in relationship with perfect beings. Now you might have noticed that. But when you think of the interactive pattern, we really behave as if they should be perfect. It's ludicrous. But we all do it. How come we all do this? What we've got to realise is, of course, people lose the plot and they react from past programming and so on. Number 3, if I have a need that clashes with your need, I'll raise it. But stay loving and calm while you raise an opposing need. So, we have different needs. It's called a needs clash, or a needs mismatch, and it's in the book. You've read about it. And it's normal for people to have needs mismatches, and sometimes it's values mismatches. So I think the right thing to do is this, and you think the right thing to do is that. Or it's a values and needs clash. Like, I want to do this, but I should do that. Sometimes we have those internally. I would like to do this, but I really should do that. It's a needs-values clash. And sometimes it's between two people. So these clashes are normal, but we really go into that fight-flight response when they come up. Number 4, I'll make every effort to support you to get your needs met. Now this is not something most people do. They do it occasionally. They're really good at supporting their partner occasionally, particularly when there's no clash. If there's no clash, it's much, much easier. If it's a clash, it's a bit of a problem. Number 5, I'll trust that my love will support you to feel my support of you and your needs and interests. Now this is a big deal. In other words, if I'm really loving of my partner, do I trust that, but just by being loving and supporting you, that you will feel my support? No, most people wouldn't trust that. Most people, if they're just loving, would feel that if they're just being loving, that's not enough. They've got to say something, and so it's not wrong to say something, of course. You know, sweetie, I want to be here for you, or tell me what's going on for you, I want to help you with this. It's good if you can talk. The trouble is, you've got to know that if you're loving, it is enough. It is very powerful and it's enough. And if you do this often enough with your partner, they'll know you're not going to get caught in anything. They'll know it. So all you've got to, and I practice being loving, I practice with a cat. Right? So when I sit the cats on my knee, they now get so much love from me that they jump up voluntarily, so I don't have to go and get them. So I've often got 2 cats on my knee, and I practice just being loving. And I don't mean just being loving momentarily, I mean being loving for quite some time, because it's really good to be loving ongoing, not just a moment or two. Right? So that's where I get practice, and Lucy can tell you in a minute whether it works in my relationship. Okay. I'll get you to comment in a second. Okay? Okay. It's lovely to have you back, by the way, honey. So she hasn't seen any of these slides, she doesn't know that I'm talking about this at all. So the other points about features of genuine love. I've learned that if I stay loving, you will stay calm and or engaged. So what will happen if you manage to do this, if you stay loving and you're non-reactive, your partner automatically calms, of course, because there's no battle. So it makes everything calm. 7, I've noticed that when I stay loving, I can hear and understand you more accurately. So if I'm listening to my partner and I'm really trying to tune into my partner, and I'm staying loving, I'm more likely to be able to empathize and tune in as to where my partner is at. Because it can be with children too. With children you can do the same thing. I now realize that if I'm overwhelmed with emotion, I can just come back to knowing I'm okay. I can then find a way to cope without projecting stuff on you. So let's suppose I get an emotional eruption, all over the place, try and hold it in, try and manage Jeff, try and manage me, if I'm overwhelmed with this emotion, and then if I can work with that and sit with it and I know it, and can calm myself, even if I have to go away and take some time out to calm myself down, then I can find a way to cope without projecting stuff on you, just by staying, if possible, in a loving space. And lastly, I noticed that by being loving and engaged, I need not fear being shamed or criticized. Because you see, if you support yourself and you're loving, then it doesn't really matter what comes at you. You learn, oh, shit happens. And everyone throws their little bit every now and again, including my partner. And so if I'm staying okay about me, I don't have to protect myself. So I don't get reactive. Now this is asking a lot.
It's safe to become a vulnerable partner.
Yes, it's another way to put it. Very nice. Become a vulnerable partner because you stay open. That's right, you stay open. But you really have to, well, in my experience, you have to, it's easy at least, if you stay loving of your partner and loving of yourself and know that you're okay. It doesn't matter if you messed up. Everyone messes up. But what happens is you just say, oh, okay, I messed up. No big deal, right? It might be a big deal for my partner, but no, I messed up. Okay, I messed up, right? So I stay with the fact that it's okay that I messed up. My partner might be really bothered that I messed up, but that's okay. That's okay. I can understand they're human. I can understand the word of God that I messed up, and so you try and stay loving and open.
But can I just say something?
Yes.
And that is that if you do have a reaction, if either of us have a reaction, obviously we disconnect from the feeling of love. So
Can you bring that around a bit, honey? Because I'm aware that this camera now isn't. Yeah, sorry, I'm taking off track.
So what I was saying is that obviously if either of you have a reaction, you disconnect from the feeling of love. So what Jeff talks about going off and being by yourself and calming yourself down, and part of that process is actually coming back to the love. So that there's a tendency to feel like, oh my God, I failed, and all of that sort of shit that you put on yourself. But it's really about coming back to yourself and feeling the love again, and then coming back to each other and being able to communicate in that space. But it's not about perfection either. So
What you described is more likely to happen to the anxious and secure pattern. Because the anxious and secure pattern gets really bothered if what they've done might have bothered something else or might not be nice or kind or something. The avoiding pattern is less likely to go down that track.
to disconnect from themselves.
Yes, they're more likely to back themselves.
That's
What they'll do though is they will react if they feel shame or something like that. Or feel criticised. That's going to get them being reactive. Any thoughts, any comments? I appreciate your comment. Any more that you'd like to add or questions?
It's just the essence of feeling safe to be, and in that comment from Lennon, that's how I understand to be.
Yes.
Just to be.
Yes.
Fully human to be.
And it's so simple, really. Like if you just stay loving, like it sounds like it's really simple. It does take a wee bit of practice because most people are not loving most of the time. Most relationships are loving momentarily. They have moments of love. They're not ongoing loving because people are too preoccupied and they're caught raising their kids and things. But I'll show you how absurd this is. How you can manage this when it suits you. Here's an example. Your child, your 6, 7, 8, your 9, 10-year-old comes up and says to you, I hate you, you're just a horrible, horrible mum or dad, and I just hate the way you do things, and you're terrible, and I'm going to go to my next door neighbour because I don't want to be with you. And you say, oh sweet, you're so cute. Now if your partner says that, it isn't quite the same. But you see what happens is we can be really engaging when we don't buy into it. Because with a child, you don't. Because with a child, you know they're being a child. But in actual fact, adults are being a child as well when they do that sort of stuff. It's just they're in a bigger body. But we struggle to hold it together.
Well, the moment we have a reaction, we repeat it back to a child's face.
Yes.
Is there any like research around that? Because it's quite interesting. Yeah, it's quite a good analogy that we do react with adults but not with children.
Yes.
So is there like in terms of, is there actually any sort of reason for that?
So why does an adult not react that way with their child? What internally happens differently?
Yeah,
That's what I'm asking.
you want the child.
Come back.
Was there? It's a parental instinct of responsibility for the child to be safe.
Perhaps that.
I think with my kids, I just think, I know that they're learning, I can understand that they're learning, it's a learning opportunity, that they're struggling with emotions that they're learning about, and all that, and so you give them that grace, whereas I think I expect more of my partner, I expect
So what you're
to
saying
sort of
is,
already know this shit and to be like on top of it, you know? We're not, and including myself, obviously, but you know, like with kids, you sort of, you know that they're learning, so you sort of,
A bit more gentle.
yeah, right.
so what you're saying is you say to yourself, oh, you're young, you haven't learned this stuff yet, I'll forgive you.
Yeah.
But I think there's more than that, isn't there?
You stay in love.
Yes.
Stay feeling love.
Yes. You see, with a child, you stay loving on them. You don't get thrown around because you think, I think you're gorgeous anyway. Oh, that's really cute that you're telling me I'm horrible, right? So what you do is you stay loving on them. I don't think you do that assessment so much. I mean, you could do that. You could say, well, you're small and so on. But you see, when they're small, they're not threatening to us. You know, a child doesn't threaten us the same way. We don't get threatened.
Power differential, eh?
Yes, different power differential. That's right. So what happens is we've got the power, they've got no power. So we don't really feel as threatened by them. As they get to be teenagers, say,
Yeah.
that would be different.
Balance tips.
Yes, the balance is tipped.
But you can step outside yourself. This is what I notice is I can step outside myself more, and though I still feel kind of there's a bit of a punishment cycle that goes on when the kind of stakes are raised and you get a teenager tantruming, and but there's a part of me that goes, well, I don't want to lay the shit on you that I felt I got as a teenager from my parents, so I still try to stay quite cool and talk through.
Yes, but you've done that. You've reflected on that as a parenting role and a parenting responsibility. You're not doing that in the moment.
No, it's easy to do that with your child than in partnership.
Yes, it is. And also you're doing that, so you're thinking that proactively, not just when the stuff happens, when shit happens, you're doing that as a general thought, right? So you're in the mode all the time with this child, that I want my child to have a better time than I had, so you're disciplining yourself, right? Well, what you're doing is you're empowering yourself to be different, and you're disciplining yourself to be different, and you're disciplining yourself most of the time to stay loving. But with our partners, we get triggered too easily. It's just too reactive like this. And we don't realise that in actual fact, our partners haven't been through the school of this is how to relate, and how to be loving, and how not to react. They haven't been through that school. No one's been through that school. I tried that school when I was a school counsellor. I tried to teach the kids that. They weren't the least bit interested. because they were going to be fine. Some of you know, I've said this to you, but I had one sixth form in those days class, because I taught them transition, which was helping them get ready for the workforce. And I said to this group of kids, I said, how many of you are in single parent families where your parents split up and about 2/3 of the class put their hands up? And I said, how many of you expect to be in the same place in a few years' time? No hands went up. Of course, because they're not going to be stupid like their parents. They're going to be brilliant. They're not going to do all that silly shit, right? So they're going to be fine. The difficulty here is we do not know how to do this stuff until actually
You have to do it.
until you have to do it.
And you also don't see your conditioning until,
That's correct.
you know.
You don't realise that your reactive pattern is a very old reactive pattern. So when we're 50 reacting or something, we're really still 5 or 7 or something. But we don't see that because we don't make the connections. But that's really what's happening.
Well, there's hope, Jeff, because if you keep practicing, it does become much easier. I
Yes.
feel that I've probably grown up more in the last 10 years than I have, throughout the rest of my
Absolutely.
46 years.
Absolutely. It wasn't until I learned this stuff in my late 40s that I was able to hold a relationship together. So, and I couldn't do that for 5 minutes previously because I, was falling. When you don't know this stuff, how can you possibly work with it?
It's like you don't know what you don't know.
No. Okay. Is this useful? So let's just do a summary of this. The reason I used the John Lennon clip was because he and Yoko had a really, really good culture of caring and doing nice things with each other. And that's what was shown in that video. Most people lose the ability to do that. They're good in the honeymoon phase, but they don't keep doing it. But they really have to do it. So then when you do that, you're practicing doing that. You're practicing being loving because there's no stuff happening. And so what you're doing is you're putting money in the love bank when things are good, which helps you when things are not so good. But most people don't put energy into doing that. They don't realise how important it is. They just think they meet a partner and they just keep living the way they've always done.
And they expect the relationship to somehow survive.
That's right. Miraculously, we're going to be brilliant like this forever. And miraculously, no one is. That's why miraculously they will fall apart. All of us. It's not, hardly anyone is an exception. A lot of relationships that stay together with lots of compromises where they're not really happy. They just stay together because it's functional.
And they also, both parties lose a sense of self in that process too, I would say, because they learn not to be themselves and they learn to compromise in order to keep the relationship together, which is not the same as negotiating. It comes with a slightly different energy.
It's very avoidance, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's not really looking at the issues.
And you can feel the impression when you walk into a home that's like that. I've got
Yes.
some friends who continue to not evolve, and it's really very difficult to be in their
Yes.
space.
Yes, it
It's
is.
just as if talk about loss of self. If you stay the same as yourself and don't change, how can the relationship grow? Can you not, instead of saying loss of self, say that you grow as a person? Because you change from the person you were. And if it wasn't so successful, like say, you could say Jeff lost his self. He hasn't, he's actually gained something.
And
That's
but
correct.
that's because he's been engaging consciously.
That's correct.
Whereas a lot of people don't engage consciously. They've got unconscious abilities determining how they behave with one another. So they end up compromising because there's always that power thing going on. They end up compromising. And you can end up losing, disconnecting from the sense of self. Particularly women, probably. What do you think to say?
Yes, because men tend to empower themselves.
Yeah.
Women tend to be so they can easily go into disempowered states
Yeah.
and lose track of themselves.
Yeah, especially children involved.
But I think, Al, your point that you're making, if I've got this right, is if you're conscious, you keep on working at it. I think that's what you were getting at.
You don't look at it as a way of losing yourself, you look at it as a way of gaining a new self.
Yes. Yes.
It's if you're engaging consciously. Yeah. Absolutely. The relationship is a wonderful vehicle, if you like, to consciously learn about yourself.
So we go back to
It's like a deepening of transparency that you both can enjoy, because you get to know more about one another and you know more about yourself. You feel consciously satisfied and safer.
yes. We go back to number 6, sort of what Carl was saying. If I stay loving, you will stay calm and I'll stay engaged. And I think the bit you're adding, and no one will lose anything. I won't lose myself in the process. Because when you're staying loving, you don't lose yourself because you're engaged with yourself. And you also know there's no real threat. You know, I'll get my say in it. Or I'll say, okay, honey, all right, I've heard that. Can I now give you another viewpoint? Because I've got something else that I'm thinking about here. So when you slow it down, all the options, particularly the good listenings, remain. So, the slide you've seen before, I'm going to ask you to write down page 245 where you're planning the new you. I'd like you to write some tips down here. How you could do things differently. So couples get good at negotiating the time to listen when they're doing this well, and they do it even. That's number one is easiest if at least one person's in the loving space. 2, they make every effort to support both separateness and togetherness. Now that means they don't get caught up in ego. They've got the ability to hear 2 viewpoints and take the calm to hear 2 viewpoints. And if you're in a loving place, in a loving space with your partner, it's so much easier. 3, they understand they each have bad days, and they try to support if their mate is struggling. As I say, it's much easier if you're in a hard space. 4, they try to share responsibilities and talk about how the sharing can be best achieved. Now that again is negotiation, 2 different viewpoints of the responsibilities. So it takes time to talk that through, and if you can be loving, then you don't get caught up in feeling like you're being railroaded. Number 5, if they have need, preferences and wants, they frequently bring these up for discussion. What people who are successful in relationships do is they do more talking than those who do not. They bring up things that need to be talked about. They bring up the things that other people just wouldn't even think were important to talk about. So they do more talking. The anxious and secure style generally are better at that than the avoidance. Number 6, both empower themselves to speak up on behalf of self and the relationship. So what did we talk about last night, Lisa? We talked about some tasks that you do, making beds and things, right?
Oh, yeah.
Some tasks around the house. So what we were talking about these tasks around the house because Lucy was stretched yesterday to get them done, and so I tried to listen to where Lucy was at. In fact, she was struggling and the bits that were difficult. And then I said, okay, well maybe let me see what I could do there, given if I've got the energy and so on. So, but the thing is, you see, if on a day I didn't have the energy, something I agreed to do, I'd say, well, Lucy, I don't have the energy. What are we going to do now? So we keep talking, we keep reinventing. We don't assume anything. We just keep talking anything that needs to be talked about. But most people don't do that. They just get in the ruts. They just get in the habit. All right, so what I'd like you to do is record on page 245 anything at all that you want to incorporate, that you want to do better. And while you're doing that, I'll just give you a couple of minutes. I'm going to run John and Yoko here.